Chicky, welcome back. Man, you're in for a treat today. I have a gentleman and a veteran. You will love to hear what this man has to say. Above all, he is an author. And man, he got me on the greatest beer run ever. The story of that, the story of his life, is something you really need to hear. My name is Dacquino. His name is Chicky Donahue. Chicky, man, it is my honor to have you here on this show. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your incredible life story.
Well, Vinny, it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you.
My name is Chick, John Chick Donahue, and commonly referred to as Chicky Donahue.
When did Chicky start?
During the war, I was a baby, and my father played the piano and made us all sing. There were 6 of us. And my song was Chickory Chick Chala Chala, in a bananica, Monica Monica, Chickory Chick is me. And I've been Chicky ever since.
Wow, that's a great story right there. Okay, that's good. We're done. So, Chicky.
Yes.
Then you did a big thing. You served for us in Vietnam. And that was a big part of your life. But high school, different time, of different era. Tell me a little bit about that. Before you went to Vietnam, what was your life like? Where were you raised?
I was born number 3 in a brood of 6 with Charlie and Catherine Donahue at the Sign of the Devil, 666 West 207th Street in Inwood, Manhattan.
Wow.
Good Shepherd Parish. And that's where I grew up, and that's where I was baptized, confirmed, and sang in the choir.
And then Vietnam happened. You were drafted, you enlisted,
I had joined the Marines at 17.
Wow.
I was a little bit of a guy, maybe with a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to be a tough guy. I wanted to be a big guy.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So I went to Paris Island, and I said, this was quite
Paris
a pass.
Island.
Yeah.
Quite an experience. My son was there, and I had a chance to spend some time there as a father of a Marine. Okay. Quite an experience.
Yes. Yes. So I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. Wow. And then I got out of the Marine Corps, 2 years in the inactive reserve. And by that time, the Vietnam War started.
Wow.
And
so you served and then Vietnam?
I served first. And then in the inactive reserve, when the war started picking up in Vietnam, it was about 1964, I think, I tried to rejoin.
Yeah.
I figured I was trained as a Marine. There's a war going to be going on, and that's what I'm here for.
Time to do your duty again.
Yeah. So, but they didn't want me.
Whoa.
So, for whatever reason, they wouldn't accept me to rejoin. So, I wasn't going to miss it.
No.
So, I went and got seaman's papers. There were a couple of guys in the neighborhood who were merchant seamen. So, I got seaman's papers. And I had all my security clearances from the Marine Corps. So when I went on the merchant ships, I wound up sailing supplies to Vietnam.
Wow.
So I made 3 trips there when I made the last trip there. That I promised my mother when I come back it would be the last.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So you signed up for Vietnam, and that experience resulted many years later in a book called The Greatest Beer Run Ever. What is this book about? Is it about Vietnam?
I grew up in a very tight community in Manhattan, New York City, but a very little village. And by that time, the year was 1967, we had lost 26 young men from that little neighborhood killed over there. We didn't realize at the time, but the ones who came home were damaged. Wow. And I was coming through Central Park one day and saw this huge demonstration and against the war. It was, but also against the troops. It also was. And I was very upset with that and angered. But what could I do? And I went back up to the neighborhood. I went into one of the local pubs, and the 6 o'clock news came on. Then news was live then.
Wow, yeah.
And they went on about this demonstration, and the guys there were upset like me. And these poor guys over there dying in Vietnam, our friends, our kids. And it was sad that they would be watching this.
Yep.
So what could we do? We couldn't get down there and disrupt their demonstration. Even if we had 1 million people, we couldn't really. No. Anyway.
Right.
So somebody suggested, it was Colonel Lynch, the local bartender there. Well, he was only a PFC in the Army, but we respectfully referred to him as the Colonel. And he asked for my seaman's papers. It was an ID card. He wanted to borrow them, as he said. He would go over to Vietnam, and he'd buy all these guys a beer and pat them on the back and let them know that everybody in the old neighborhood loved them, respected them, and supported them in what they were doing, their duty. Yeah. So obviously, George couldn't go on my seaman's papers, so I didn't learn in the Marines what I should have learned: don't volunteer. So I volunteered to do it.
Of course you did. So you actually did a beer run to Vietnam? No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
First, I had to get the addresses of the guys who we knew who were there.
Yeah.
And I gathered up within 24 hours 6 names. And within 24 hours, I had gone to see the mother of one of them and the father of another one. And the mother of a third one actually came to the bar the next day, and not a woman to be seen in bars.
Oh, yeah,
and
those days.
With her Irish brogue, thanked me for going to see her Tommy. And she tried to give me $100 to take to her Tommy, to give it to Tommy, tell her how. She prays for him every day, and I would have loved to have taken $100, but I knew if I did, I'd have to go to a minefield to find Tommy. I couldn't come back to the neighborhood.
You'd never find Tommy.
So I refused the $100. To this day, I regret it since I found Tommy later on. And then I went down to the Union Hall a day or two later, and I got a ship. And it was like Providence. It's no accidents. The shipping board was there, and the ship that they needed an oiler, I was an oiler. It read the SS Drake Victory, which was the old Victory ships from World War II that the military had taken out of the mothball to send supplies to Vietnam. And this was leaving from Leonardo, New Jersey, which is an ammunition dump. So I knew what it was, what it was taking, and where it was going. It was my ticket to Nam.
Wow. And they let you go on it?
I was a seaman. I was qualified.
Sure.
So they called it a pierhead. It was leaving right that day.
So you went to Nam?
I went to Nam. Yeah.
And you did a beer run.
And I had the list of the guys, and I found the first guy the first day before I even got on land. And he was Tommy Collins. He was the son of that Irish woman who wanted to give me the $100. I could have had $100 in my pocket.
And you found Tommy Collins?
I found him right away. Before he was on another ship in a harbor anyway, I found Tommy. What are you doing here? I said, I come over to see you, and your mother sent me over to tell you she prays you 6 o'clock mass, and here's a beer. Brought a beer for you. Let you know we're all behind you. Everybody in the neighborhood misses you, supports you, all that sort of stuff. So we went and we had a few beers and sang a few songs, and then we went into town. And while we were in town, we were in a bar in town, and there was a big Texan there. And he had a big cowboy hat on and a first air cav patch on his uniform. And the second guy on my list was Ricky Dugan, and he was in the first air cav. So I went up to him. I said, "You know a guy by the name of Ricky Dugan?" He says, "No, I don't know Ricky Dugan." "What's his address?" "Oh, yeah, I know Charlie Company. They're up in the Highlands with a I said, I gave him a sob story. I said it was my stepbrother or something, and I had to go. I promised Mom I'd see him before we buried her or something like that. How am I going to get up in the Highlands? So he says, well, if you want, I'll take you up there.
Wow.
I said, how are you going to get me up there, He says, well, I have my own plane, he says. He was the crew chief on a twin engine. I said, can I get on your plane? He says, yeah. He says, you be on the tarmac at 0800 hours in the morning, and I'll take you up there.
Wow.
So I told Collins, he says, we'll get you to the tarmac. So the next morning, Didn't get much sleep, but I was at the tarmac at 8 o'clock, and here was Tex, and he says, "What's your name?" Give him your name to that guy there, and I gave him my name, and he says, "What's your rank?" And I said, "Civilian." He said, "Civilian." Tex says, "Put him down, civilian," whatever. So I got in the plane, and the plane took off, and next stop was on K in the Highlands. And I went looking for Ricky Dugan. And his C company was like a mile or so through a jungle road. There's no buildings or nothing, a little wooden bat, not even partial wood buildings. So I find Charlie Company, and there's nobody there except,
no.
I'll never forget, a big African-American supply sergeant. He was the only guy there. All right, and I tell him my same sob story. I'm looking for my stepbrother, and he says, "Well, they're gone north." He says, "You ain't gonna find them." So I said, "Oh, Ma, he says, "Well, I tell you what I could do for you." He says, "If you want, you can write him a letter, and I'll make sure he gets it this afternoon."
Wow.
So I said, "Man, that's pretty quick." I said, "Wait a second." I said, "You don't even know where he went up north, like the name of the town, but you know it's going to get the." He looked at me like I was an idiot, and he said, "Of course, he'll get it." He said, "We got a 1,300 mail run, don't you know that?" So I said, "Well, can I get on that mail run?" And he got tired of talking to me. Then he said to me, I'll never forget it. He says, "You got here, didn't you?"
Wow.
So that told me I'm already in the zone. You're already there.
Yeah.
So I went back down, and I bummed another ride on another plane. But I'm going down that dirt road I alluded to earlier, and there's nobody there. I got to run. It's 10 minutes to 1, and I'm running down this road, and no vehicles, nobody, no buildings, nothing. And I see dust coming from one end, heading the same direction I am, obviously a vehicle. So I stop, and I put my hands up like I'm surrendering or stop, And the guy stops. He says, "Where you going?" I'm in civilian clothes now, dungarees, a blazing shirt, long reddish brown hair. And he says, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm trying to get down there. I got to get that 1,300 mail run." He says, "Jump in, I'll take you down there."
Wow.
So I jump in. He says, "What are you doing? Who are you with? What are you doing here?" So I tell him what I'm doing. And he stops it, and he says, "Holy, Chicky Donahue?" I said, "Who do you?" It's one of the guys on my list, Kevin McClune.
Oh, for God's sake.
Driving the Jeep.
Amazing story.
He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going up to see Ricky Dugan. They say he's up north. I'm going to going up on the mail run." He says, "Ricky, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just brought Collins beer. I got beer for you, and I got beer for Dugan." He says, "And what are you doing with it?" I said, "I'm taking it up there to give it to Dugan." He says, "That's got to be the greatest beer run ever."
Wow.
And
there you go. The greatest beer run
the name
ever.
of the story.
That was the greatest beer run ever.
So he took me to the tarmac, and we had a beer, and we messed around, and I put my name on a manifest, and they didn't know who I was or what I was doing, and I started realizing that they saw a civilian, and they think you're something to do with the government, and so they didn't know who I was. Just didn't know who I was, and the military is kind of structured. I'm a street-educated person, and I'm sensing this, that nobody wants to bother me. Nobody's questioning me.
No, because
they don't know who I am.
You obviously belong there, or you wouldn't be there.
I wouldn't be there. What kind of idiot? There's no tourists there. So they let me on a plane, and I flew up there, and there was a couple of GIs coming back from hospital and everything, and two of the young kids, GIs, were in Charlie Company. I happened to sit next to them, and I keep saying it was no accidents. Everything happens for a reason. I sit next to a guy, and the guy says, "Where you going?" I said, I'm going and looking for a guy, Ricky Dugan. He's in Charlie Company. He says, "Sergeant, I know Dugan." I said, "You do?" He says, "Yeah, we're in Charlie Company. We're coming back from hospital."
Oh,
so now I know all I got to do is follow these guys.
Yeah.
But one guy was terrified that I was doing this. The other guy thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and he wanted to be part of this conspiracy now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I said to the guy who was worried, I said, "Listen, fella, I don't want to know your name. I'm never going to bother you. You didn't help me. You didn't even talk to me. I'm just going to follow you, and I'm going to stay far behind you, but that's all I'm going to do," which is what I did. So they get off the plane. And, nobody knows where they're going in the military until somebody tells them,
Yeah,
"Go over there
right.
and do that."
Yep.
So they was directed to this pickup like a PC. So they went over to this PC, and I followed behind maybe 20, 30 yards. They got in the PC, and the PC started moving.
Oh my God.
So I ran alongside the PC and I slapped the side of it. I was in the Marines. I knew how to stop a truck.
Yeah.
Stop.
There you go.
So he stopped. I climbed in, gave him 2 more, and he started going. So now I've got my ride to where, and this one kid who didn't like it, this guy's going to be the ruin of me. So we followed them. They drove through. We were at Fubai then. And we drove all around there and pulled up to a church in the countryside. And there was like a plateau next to the church and a graveyard, and maybe 20 helicopters.
Wow.
A whole bunch of helicopters.
Wow.
So these 2 guys got off and they went into a little tent, obviously operations tent of some kind, and I stayed back. And when they come out, the friendly guy says, "We got a helicopter at 1800 hours, 6 o'clock, and we're up at LZ Jane. They're taking us up to LZ Jane." So, okay, now I know what to do. So I walked into the tent and I, like a cop, all right, hey, you got an 1800 mail run going up to LZ Jane. My name is Chick Donahue. You want to put me down on the manifest? So the guy says,
Chick
"What's your
Donahue
rank?"
sounds so much like a news reporter
Yeah.
or a journalist.
I didn't care what they thought,
Yeah,
just put me on the manifest.
There you go.
So the guy says, "What is your rank, sir?" So I said, "I'm a civilian." He says, "You're going to have to speak to Major Meeker,"
Oh.
or someone like that. I said, and then I hear a guy behind me said, "Speak to who's got to speak to me?" He hears Major Meeker.
Oh my God.
He says, I said, "You Major Meeker?" "Yeah, I'm Chick Donahue." I said, "I know you got a 1800 chopper going up to LZ Jane. I got to be on it. I got to see somebody up there." That's all I told him. He says, "What's your business up there?" I got to go up and see somebody and talk to him." He says, "Okay, well, put him on it." He said, "Did you eat?" I said, "No, I haven't eaten." He says, "Come on, let's go. We ate." So we went in another tent in the officers' quarter. And at that time, I thought I was beating the whole system. I said, this is really funny. I'm enjoying this. I'm a PFC from the Marines, and I'm sitting here with Major Meeker in the officers' tent having a nice meal.
And
I have a helicopter getting ready to take me up to see the kid who grew up in the building I was born and raised in.
Oh, for God's sake.
So, and I had gone to see his mother and told his mother I was going over to see him. So, 1800, I get on a helicopter, and he takes off, and they fly me to who knows where it was, but they called it LZ Jane. They had just got there that morning, and there was no houses, no nothing, but lots of dogs. They had a lot of dogs, and they sounded more like alarms than anything, all right? And I get off, I'm still in the dungarees, and I'm still in the blazing shirt, and the 2 kids get off, and I jump off with them. We're the only 3 get off, and the helicopter takes off right away. Wow. So I couldn't have got back on it if I wanted to. Wow. It's gone, I'm there. And there's a sergeant there with a couple of guys with radio, and he says, who are you? So I tell him who I am, and he says, what are you doing here? So he just looked like the type of guy you could share something with.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a street accent from Chicago or something,
Yeah.
So I said, my stepbrother's here, and he's out on, he's here somewhere, and I promised Mom I'd come in and see him before Christmas. I'm late. It's now to be middle of January. So he says, "You're kidding me." I said, no, you want to know what I'm doing? That's what I'm doing. So he tells the guy on the radio, he says, "Get Dugan in here."
Oh, for God's sake.
So, and he says, "Yeah, Dugan, this is Sergeant Bloom," or whatever his name was. He says, "Get in here." And he hangs up. Well, it seems that Dugan was out on an ambush post outside the perimeter. Again, there's nothing here, just fields and people. No tanks or buildings, maybe a tent. So I wait there, and 20 minutes later or half hour later, who comes walking up but Ricky Dugan. Now it's close to dark. It's the end of the day. I've been going all morning since that 1800 run with the Texan. And the guy, he says to the sergeant, "Yes, Sarge, what do you want?" And he tells the story in the video that Pabst put on a YouTube, the greatest beer run ever.
Oh, wow.
All these guys were interviewed.
So there was a video made of all of this.
Oh no, we had a reunion 47 years later.
Wow.
When I started on the book. Wow. And he tells it. Anyway, so Dugan says, "What do you want me for, Sarge?" He says, "I don't want you." He says, "This guy does." And he had me get into a little hole, and he had a poncho over the hole. pull the poncho back. He says, Chicky Donahue, what the heck are you doing here? What am I doing here? I came to see you.
Oh, for God's
He
sake.
says, no, really, what are you doing here? I said, really, I came to see you. And he says, who are you with? Like, are you with the Army or the Navy or what?
Yeah.
I said, I'm with you. So the sergeant says, listen, you want to get together, it's your business, but you can't do it here. I know the guy don't belong here. Dugan, take him with you, get him out of here. I can't answer for him.
Yeah.
Dugan says, what am I supposed to do with him? I don't care what you do with him. Just get him out of here. So, but I'm out in an ambush patrol, he says to the sergeant. So the guy says, I don't care where you take him. Just take him away from here. So Dugans takes him out. The first thing he did was, he had a poncho on him. He took the poncho off him and put it on me and said something about, well, first thing I got to do is cover him up. I ain't taking him out there looking like
Not
that.
taking a civilian out in the middle of there.
So we went out, and it took us another 20 minutes or so to get out there, whatever. And there's a dozen or two of them out there in what they call an ambush patrol, spot, or zone, or whatever. And they said, who's this? And he tells the lieutenant, and the sergeants were really running the show there. The lieutenant said, okay, I don't, get him out of the way. He introduced me to the guys, and I gave him some beer, and we're just laughing, and the guy's from Detroit saying, tell me something. No, really. Are you working for something?
Really what you're doing here?
Yeah, you really come over here to bring Dugan beer? I said, yeah, well, I let you guys know that we're behind you, we support you. I know you've heard about these demonstrations, but, we support you. You're our guys,
It really was the greatest beer run ever.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So now how many guys total did you do this for?
Well, the next day, the day later, the time flies there. I don't know where I was doing nothing, but the time is flying.
Yeah.
I didn't get much sleep, and he got me on a Marine Chinook helicopter, a big helicopter, and they took me to a field within walking distance of Quang Tri Airfield, and I got to Quang Tri Airfield, and I talked my way onto a flight down to the closest I could get to Quinnon, where my ship was still, that I believed was still there. And it took me to Phuket, and I started down the road to Phuket trying to hitch a ride. There was nothing to ride. And then it started getting dark, and I didn't realize that the territory became the enemy territory. I didn't know that then.
Wow.
I got a kid screaming, and I speak Japanese. I learned in the Marines. And only one truck was coming north on that road, and I stopped the guy, and it was an old Korean, and old Koreans still spoke Japanese then.
Wow.
And I said, Quinnon Yuki wa doko desu ka? Could you please show me the way to get to Quinnon? Quinnon dami dami. You don't want to go to Quinnon.
Yeah.
Quinnon no go. He said, Phuket daijobi. Okay, so where I just left Phuket. So I went back to Phuket, spent the night in Phuket, and the next morning, they took me on a convoy. I asked them, can I ride to Quinnon with you? Yeah, sure, jump in. So I jumped in a truck with a whole bunch of other trucks, and they took me down to Quinnon. I went to where my ship was. Gone. So what do I do?
Yeah.
So I go to the shipmaster of the port there, and he was a Coast Guard guy. And I said, my name is Donahue, and I was on the Drake Victory. Donahue, yeah, we got you. We got you listed as missing here. Okay. Well, it's good to see that you're alive, he says. All right. Well, we gotta. You don't have a passport? No, I didn't think so. Okay. We'll send down. Here, go over to. They have a BOQ, Bachelor's Office Quarters. They'll give you a bed there, and we'll send down to Saigon. We'll get you some papers so you can orders to come down to Saigon, and they'll give you a passport and all of that. So I said, well, why don't I just go to Saigon instead of waiting for these orders that I should spend a couple of days here?
Yeah.
He says, no, you can't go anywhere in this country without orders. Don't you know that? I said, this guy hasn't been anywhere. So I said, well, let me try. You do what you want. So,
I think that's the wrong
Collins-
thing to say to Chicky Donahue.
well, Collins was still there. Collins took me, he was an MP, Collins. So he took me out to the airfield. And I saw the routine. They go in a little tent and they turn in their list or whatever, and then they get permit, and then they go fly away. So I hung out by the tent, and this guy comes walking by with they wear the flight gear, like orange jumpsuit or something. And I says to the guy, I said, you going south? He says, what do you mean south? I said, I got to get to Saigon. He says, who the hell are you? So and now I'm sleeping a couple of days in them same bright
clothes.
shirt. Yeah, yeah. And I still had a long hair to begin with, and I had a bit of a beard and a mustache. So he says, wait here a minute. He went inside, come back out, and he says, you're a merchant seaman? I says, yeah. He says, you see that plane over there? And it's a Beechcraft. It was like a VIP plane. I says, yeah. He says, that's my plane. He says, I'm going to go and get on that plane. And if I come to the door and gives you the thumbs up, you just come in, jump in that plane, say nothing to nobody. Even if they ask you anything, just jump on the right, there's a seat there. Sit down and shut your mouth. Wow. I said, yes, sir, no problem. So the guy started walking away, and he turned around, he said to me, he says, you know, if I wasn't a merchant seaman during World War II, I'd let your smelly butt stay right here. I got on it. He took me to Saigon.
Oh, my God.
And then the whole story began from there.
Chicky,
Yeah.
we have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, it's a long story.
This was not only the greatest beer run ever, it's one of the best vet stories I have ever heard.
Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Your courage, your determination, just unbelievable. I could listen to you all day long. So you completed your beer run. You got the beer to the people that you had to get it to. This passion, this drive is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Did you ever see these guys again?
47 years later, we all got together in a pub in the old neighborhood, and we sat at the bar and reenacted that whole story.
That is
It's
absolutely
on YouTube.
amazing.
Pabst Blue Ribbon put it, taped it.
Well,
12
let me tell you
minutes.
something. This conversation we just had, that will also be on YouTube. And I want people to listen to it. Listen to this man's incredible tale. Read this book, The Greatest Beer Run Ever, a true story of friendship, stronger than war. Our men gave their lives in Vietnam. Some of them gave their hearts. This is one of them. Chicky, I cannot thank you enough for what you did and for coming here to share it with us. You are one incredible man. Thank you for being who you are. Keep telling your story. These are the stories we need to hear. Not necessarily the foxholes, but the men we made, like you, who came back believing the importance of giving a part of your heart and your soul to other people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this. Chicky, quite the man. Continue doing what you're doing. I understand you're going off to Vietnam.
Yes.
In a couple weeks, you're going to go visit there.
Yes.
They deserve you. You deserve to go there and feel the strength of what you did.